Okay.
Saludos amigos, los invitamos a escuchar La Mesa Redonda, The Round Table, donde discutimos los temas del día, hablando de política, educación y otros temas, locales, regionales y mundiales, por USA la Radio.
Señores oyentes de USA Media, están escuchando La Mesa Redonda, The Round Table, desde la ciudad del amor fraternal. From the city of brotherly love, les habla Fernando Mendez, now Jack controlando el tablero y con noticias nacionales sobre el debate, noticias locales, lo que está pasando en nuestra ciudad y en nuestro estado. Empecemos por ahí. Luego lo vamos a hablar del debate y esperamos que se nos una nuestro colega Martin Pratt. City and State for today. Philadelphia Mayor Jim Kenney and a host of city leaders on Wednesday announced a lawsuit against Pennsylvania seeking the right to enact its own gun control ordinances. The legal effort marks the latest attempt by local officials in Pennsylvania to overturn a concept in state law known as preemption, which prohibits cities from creating and enforcing local gun laws. Well, we would opine that the city, the mayor, should be allowed to enact regulations, laws, because it is his government, it is his city that is more directly affected. And we know the governors in general are not always focused on Philadelphia or Pittsburgh or Scranton. They are looking at the state as a whole, and sometimes we just need to decide for ourselves. So the city government should decide those laws. Actually, what we would like to see in this country is more gun control on the federal level. That will preempt all the other decisions by states or cities. Certainly, the violence in this country can be directly attributed to the availability of guns, the facility to obtain guns. There are more guns in this country than people. I know millions of us don't have guns, which means that there are people among us who have multiple weapons. Why do we need weapons? Anyway, continue with news from Pennsylvania. Closed-door talks on updating Pennsylvania's fledgling mail-in voting law showed signs of life on Wednesday, amid warnings that doing nothing will risk a dragged-out vote count in the highest stakes presidential election in the battleground state. House Republicans held an internal conference call to discuss the idea of giving counties 4 or 5 days to process mail-in ballots before Election Day, and to set down security requirements for the drop boxes that some counties are using to help collect mail-in ballots. I have this to say. We saw a report of what's going on in South Carolina right now, and the report was that the Trump administration has put sent lawyers in teams to challenge poll numbers, to challenge the voting regulations at every level, confirming once again that the Republicans are trying to squash the vote. They are trying to get us not to vote. And we should vote. And there are encouraging signs that people are going to vote right now. The reports from City Hall here in Philadelphia that people are lining up right outside City Hall, and people are using all the venues available to the voters in this city, especially places in some high schools that have been used as sites, and the Liquores Center at Temple University. Let's vote. Magisterial District Judge Jacqueline Mizurek Wednesday dismissed a lawsuit filed by the State Senate President pro tempore Joseph Scarnati's campaign to get the caucus, a publication of LNP Media Group, Caucus Bureau Chief Brad Bernstedt, and Spotlight PA reporter Angela Colombis to pay its accounting firm $5,000 for producing and copying public records that documented questionable campaign spending by Scarnati. It also wanted the trio to pay $1,000 in attorney's fees and cold cost, but Mizurek ruled that Scarnati's campaign, not the journalist, should pay the costs the accounting firm incurred. That's from Spotlight PA. The Philadelphia Inquirer offers a voting guide for the November election. So if you need information, you will find out more about this election, the Philadelphia Inquirer can provide those instructions. Philadelphia DA, the office says its election day task force is assembling a month early and beefing up its ranks, so it is ready to investigate and prosecute any cases of voter intimidation. That's a report from WHYY. Despite some inroads over the last few years, Pennsylvania's 253-member General Assembly remains an overwhelmingly white and male institution, though its membership has grown slightly younger as the baby boomers move into their retirement years. It's a report from the Capital Star. After hearing from protesters hit by tear gas and rubber bullets, Philadelphia City Council will now consider banning those tactics. Another report from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Banning tactics, because tear gas and rubber bullets still cause a lot of damage, and some of those injuries can be permanent. A professional geologist working on the Mariner East pipeline project says pipeline builder Sunoco Energy Transfer prevented him and other geologists from inspecting and reporting on dangerous subsidence or sinkholes during construction. So the whistleblower says professional geologists were prevented from speaking to drillers unable to gain access to drill sites and told to change the name from subsidence to earth feature in reports and have their mandated reports to agencies like the Department of Environmental Protection edited and changed by non-geologists. Oh boy, so here we are. This people seem trying to get away with controlling the news. Chester County Magisterial District Judge Michael J. Cabri III diverted nearly $4,000 in campaign donations for personal expenses, using the funds to prop up his six-figure gambling habit at casinos in Pennsylvania, Delaware, and along the Jersey Shore. That's according to state prosecutors on Wednesday. Cabri was charged by a statewide grand jury with theft by unlawful taking, perjury, and election code violations. Report from the Philadelphia Inquirer that in its editorial pages has penned lives John Bauer, cautioning that while things don't look good for President Donald Trump in Pennsylvania right now, fears that the final result of the presidential election won't be known for a long time after the election day are entirely justified. We know that those fears are justified. We know the Democrats are having trouble challenging Republicans because they are determined to stop people from voting. Republicans don't want people to vote. Let's remember that. They are determined to stop us. Governor Tom Wolf's waiver process, which allowed select businesses to reopen during the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic this spring, was a subjective process built on shifting sands of changing guidance that could be gained, according to Auditor General Eugene DePasquale. Oh boy. Pennsylvania's easing of restrictions on large gatherings provides some breathing room to event organizers during the pandemic. But don't expect to see the likes of concerts, Broadway shows, parades, and other crowd-drawing entertainment to resume in force anytime soon. Yes, that is because we are showing an increase in the number of people affected by the pandemic. So, this is, we attempt, the governor is attempting to control the reopening of businesses and restaurants and economic activity in general. But at the same time, balancing that need with the fact that COVID is still present and we are approaching now the height of the flu season. So there's in fact an increase in COVID cases across the country from Wisconsin to Florida. So we should be watchful. Pennsylvania's top election official has asked the state's highest court to back her up in a legal dispute with President Donald Trump's campaign over whether counties should count mail-in ballots when a voter's signature doesn't necessarily match the one on their registration. And one reason for that is that our signatures change. I know my signature has changed over time, and if we registered a while ago, we may not remember how we signed, but in general, the way we sign, it tends to reflect how we've done it in the past. But that's one aspect that we know for sure that these lawyers, these teams of lawyers, are looking to cancel the vote. They are looking at a signature that doesn't match to cancel those votes. The filing at midnight on Sunday by Secretary of State Kathy Boockvar, a Democrat, comes several days after Trump's campaign raised the matter in its wider election-related federal court case in the presidential battleground state. So yes, the lawyers are trying to stop us from voting, and they are attempting at this point to disqualify some of the votes already cast, or some of the ballots already arriving. The Trump and Biden campaigns this year are both targeting Catholics with messages reflecting their different judgments of how Catholic faith values might push swing voters in one direction or another in the battleground state of Pennsylvania. It is a critical effort, and it's a critical issue right now in view of the nominee for the Supreme Court, the woman who's going to replace Judge Baden Ginsburg. And that's a tricky thing because she's been affiliated with very strong, very conservative views on gay marriage, on Roe versus Wade, and more worrisome also for a lot of people at this point of the pandemic. She wants to stop Obamacare. The Affordable Care Act is in danger when this judge ascends to the court. We suspect that Mitch McConnell is doing battle every day to get her appointed as soon as possible. It is right now. This is truly the battle for control of this nation, either by crazy right-wing people who obey Donald Trump, or sort of common sense politicians who govern for the benefit of the people. And the Catholic faith, for the first time, is playing a big role. Probably not since JFK has the Catholic faith been looked upon as an obstacle to the presidency. So the Trump administration will do everything possible to tag Joe Biden with views that are, as he says, both. He tries to do both. He tries to affiliate Biden to the radical left of AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Sanders, and at the same time, he has proposed this very conservative Catholic judge to replace Judge Ginsburg. So there's an implicit contradiction in two efforts. The state's voter website crash last weekend stemmed from a Unisys-run data center that broke down last weekend in Virginia, according to the Philadelphia Inquirer. Pennsylvania's 250 college campuses would normally be buzzing with political activity right now. Student activists lining the quads, passing out free lattes and T-shirts, voter registration drives, and auditoriums packed for television debates. But nothing like that is happening. Why? Well, we know why. COVID has made it impossible. So, well, we're going to take a short break here, and when we come back, we're going to play a clip that Niall has found for us, and it concerns the debate last night, a statement by Kamala Harris. Están escuchando la mesa redonda de Round Table, en el corazón de la ciudad del amor fraternal. Now Jax controlando el tablero. Les habla Fernando Mendez. Regresamos en un momento.
I came out in the 11th grade. Nobody was embracing you. The kids were cruel. It was very difficult to be gay. Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. And even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma. I have a mentor, Maria, and she convinced me to continue my education. Just never judges. She's a true role model.
From the depths of my heart, I thank you, Maria, for being a friend and a beautiful person. No one receives a diploma alone, and I'm honored to share this moment with you. Thank you.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, go get it. You can do it.
Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org.
Señores oyentes de Úsala Media, les habla Fernando Mendez aquí desde la mesa redonda de Round Table en el corazón de la ciudad del amor fraternal. Now Jax controlando el tablero y estamos esperando a nuestro compañero colega Martin Pratt, nos va a llamar más tarde. Niall has a clip for us. Go ahead, Niall.
The American American people have witnessed what is the greatest failure of any presidential administration in the history of our country. And here are the facts. 210,000 dead people in our country in just the last several months. Over 7 million people who have contracted this disease. 1 in 5 businesses closed. We're looking at frontline workers who have been treated like sacrificial workers. We are looking at over 30 million people who in the last several months had to file for unemployment. And here's the thing. On January 28th, the Vice President and the President were informed about the nature of this pandemic. They were informed that it's lethal in consequence, that it is airborne, that it will affect young people, and they knew what was happening and they didn't tell you. Can you imagine if you knew on January 28th, as opposed to March 13th, what they knew, what you might have done to prepare? They knew and they covered it up. The Vice President said, when asked, well, why didn't y'all tell anybody? He said, because the President wanted people to remain calm. So I want to ask the American people, how calm were you when you were panicked about where you're going to get your next roll of toilet paper? How calm were you when your kids were sent home from school and you didn't know when they could go back? How calm were you when your children couldn't see your parents because you were afraid they could kill them? But this administration stood on information that if you had as a parent, if you had as a worker knowing you didn't have enough money saved up, and now you're standing in a food line because of the ineptitude of an administration that was unwilling to speak the truth to the American people. I will always fight for a woman's right to make a decision about her own body. It should be her decision and not that of Donald Trump and the Vice President, Michael Pence. But let's also look at what else is before the court. It's the Affordable Care Act.
Okay, Niall, thank you. Thank you for that clip. Well, as we can hear, Kamala Harris in that debate with the Vice President, Mike Pence, many of the commentators are saying the debate did not move the needle. But what is important from that debate, one of the conclusions that we can drive, unavoidable, is that Kamala Harris is in fact equal to the task. And that if she had to take the reins of this government, that she has proven herself capable of doing it. And the vice presidential debate had few memorable moments, nothing like the famous one with Dan Quayle looking like a deer in the headlights after he was told he was no JFK. But Kamala Harris did score a few points. And what should be the most memorable headline of this day, the biggest headline of that debate, when Pence refused to commit to a peaceful transition of power. That should be the headline in every newspaper in this country. Trump and Pence both deny that we voted them out on November 3rd, that they are already prejudging the results of the election. They know they are losing. They know they are behind by anywhere from 10 to 15 points across the country. And now they are running scared. And we'll talk about the second presidential debate, because that is also in the news. But we insist, the biggest headline of the day, when Pence was asked if he would accept the result of the election, and he refused to say yes. What he did, he deflected everything, all the questions. He lied, outright lied. That's when he said that President Trump and Pence himself had been acted very responsibly with respect to the pandemic, that they had provided plenty of equipment to hospitals across the country, to the states across the country. All we have to remember is that Jared Kushner at one point said that the equipment belonged to him or to Trump, not to the states, and that they were distributed accordingly. Just remember that. Remember that many doctors, many nurses have suffered the effects of COVID because they lack the proper equipment to protect themselves, the PPE. So, this debate only served to expose Mr. Pence as one more individual who supports this president regardless of the truth, ignoring the fact that they have acted irresponsibly in the case of this pandemic. As Kamala Harris says, wouldn't we have acted differently? Wouldn't we have responded differently if we had known way back in February the seriousness of COVID? But what we remember is that Mr. Trump and Pence and the people in the administration all said in unison that they were doing a great job, that the pandemic was under control, that only a few people had died back in February, March. And we have this one thing that Kamala Harris mentioned, but she did not highlight it enough. We have the president's voice on a recording telling Bob Woodward that he intended to downplay the seriousness of COVID-19. He didn't want to create panic. That was his excuse. When we know what he wanted was, he was afraid that the news of COVID, the seriousness of COVID, would affect the economy as it in fact has. And he was afraid of that because all along, even now at this very moment, even after he went through what he did in recent days with COVID, he wants to focus on the economy because that is what he thinks is his salvation. It is unfortunate that we have heard many minorities, Hispanics and Blacks and others, who should be voting against this most unethical government, most inhumane government that has put immigrants in prisons, that has denied and continues to deny people the right to health care. These people prefer Donald Trump because, as they say, many of them, he is good for their pocketbook. He is good for the economy. Even though right now the economy is not doing so great. The logic of this sort of, it challenges our common sense. But the biggest headline of the day, and this is what we want to discuss with our friend Martin Pratt, is the fact that the second debate could be virtual, and the fact that that at this point the White House is the main focus for COVID, where more than 90 people right now have COVID. And anyway, they are concerned about cheating at the ballot box. They are concerned about mail-in vote, and they are not concerned about the pandemic that has killed more than 210,000 Americans and has affected more than 7 million Americans and millions across the world. It is unbelievable. It's very difficult to understand the kind of mentality that will protect this president, will give this president credit for the way he has dealt with the pandemic, and would vote for him only because they think he's good for their pocketbook. One of the headlines of today is the fact that the Presidential Debate Commission has decided that the second presidential debate, scheduled for Thursday, October 15th, will be virtual due to COVID-19. The candidates will participate from remote locations. Trump called Fox to say he will not participate in a virtual debate. I am not going to waste my time, said the president. And he also said he doesn't feel he's contagious at this point, even though his doctors believe that he is. And he will remain so for at least 10 to 15 more days, which would put him out of the debate anyway. Responding to Trump's reaction to the virtual debate, Biden said, we don't know what he's going to do. Bernie Sanders said, that was 12 seconds ago, right? We don't know what he's going to do. He changes his mind. This is somebody who has COVID-19. A virtual debate is appropriate. The kind of care that Trump got is what every American should have. And so Sanders went on his usual rampage about healthcare being a human right. And anyway, he is correct about many of his assumptions, but he's not the candidate. And if he were, Mr. Trump would certainly be reelected because I'm sorry to say, Mr. Sanders' views are a little extreme. Even though he's very popular with the young people in this country, with the college crowd, as is the same way Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is popular with a lot of people in this country. And that is because they don't have the experience or the knowledge of what happens with a socialist country, socialist, read that as Marxist economy. That was already attempted in the Soviet Union and China and Cuba and Venezuela. And look at Cuba and Venezuela. Look at Venezuela right now. Anyway, but one thing that Biden should not allow this president to do is to paint him as a leftist, to paint him as somebody who owes allegiance to Ocasio-Cortez or to Bernie Sanders. Biden is a moderate. He is a man who will govern for all of us, not for one, the right wing of this country or the left wing of this country. At this point, we have a clear choice between good and evil, and we know who represents evil. But denying to or refusing to participate in a debate, because he that's what he was doing on Fox News, and then he went on a rampage. He went on another interview after Fox, still saying that he's not going to participate. But as Biden said, we don't know, because he might change his mind, as he changed his mind after he announced that the conversations about providing an economic stimulus would come to an end. He changed his mind the next day, saying that he would continue the conversations. He wants to see if he can revive the idea of distributing checks that are badly needed. Even people in his government like Mnuchin and Powell have said that this is necessary for the economy right now to be revived. So we'll see. Oh boy. It's a frustration that many people must be feeling at this point. Dealing with the double talk, with the outright lying on the part of this government, and in the vice presidential debate, Mike Pence did it throughout. The debate was more civilized than it has been, than it was during the Trump Biden debate.
There won't be one.
Martin. Oh, no. This is not civilized now, Martin, because you have arrived. So what's happening?
Good one.
That's the end of the civilized debate, right? So what do you think?
Well, I think that I honestly I don't know. I think that Trump is on steroids and he's roid raging. I think he's being enabled by people around him. I don't think he wanted a second debate to begin with. So this was an excuse. We talked about this. It's an excuse for him not to debate. At the same time, if he shows up negative for 3 or 4 days, I think his ego won't let him not debate. Because, but if he's positive, let's say by Sunday, still positive, then I think he feels he got a great out. The fact that the mayor of Miami said don't come is also interesting to me. And he doesn't like to go. He doesn't like to go to places he's not wanted. He's like a child that way. It's like, you don't want to play with me? Fine, I'm not coming over. You don't want to play with my toy? Then I'm not ever speaking to you again. It's like, okay. And then he does that. He stays in that same place until the person kisses his left toe or says something nice about him. And then he's all like, we've seen it with Jeff Sessions. We've seen it with Lindsey Graham. We've seen it with Mark Rubio. We've seen it with Ted Cruz. We've seen it over and over and over and over again. So do I think he's not going to debate? No. Do I think he possibly could not debate? Yes. But it's unknown until next week.
Yeah. Mayor Pete Buttigieg says, I don't envy Mike Pence's job of defending the indefensible. And
what? Buttigieg was on something last night. He really encapsulated, I think, for a lot of us who are not really in that evangelical world. He said, how can Mike Pence defend Trump as a Christian? and he was just like, right. It was great. Fox News asked him a question about, what was it that Kamala's going to do? And he said, what is it that Mike Pence is doing? Mike Pence is going to be a lion for the, he said, we can play that game if you want to.
Right. Yeah.
And I was the first time I've seen 2 Fox anchors speechless. They were like speechless for about 10 to 15 seconds.
Uh-huh.
It was just dead air.
Well, it is. I mean, it is. I don't know how they can do it. And Pence, he looked so wooden and tense throughout because he knew that he was having difficulty defending something that in his conscience, deep in his heart, he knows that he was lying to us, that he was defending a liar.
Well, and he was about that fly was that he was so still for that long that a fly landed on him.
The fly landed
for 2 minutes. Yeah, like it's just like when you see a dog go to the bathroom and leave it on the sidewalk. Immediately, a fly is attracted to it and stays on it for a few minutes.
That was very distracting to the point that nobody cared what he was saying. People were just looking at the fly.
No, right. Nobody forgets about it. The Fly has a Twitter account. The Fly has an Instagram now. That's going to go down in history as like Dan Quayle, who took the gun, the assault rifle, and the AK-47, and turned it the wrong way, and and was displaying that Fly. That is today's Dan Quayle.
Oh, boy.
That was Pence's Dan Quayle moment.
There are some moments in our political life that are unforgettable. The one for me, one of the unforgettable ones was Dukakis driving a tank.
Yeah, that was terrible.
He looked like Mickey Mouse in a tank. Anyway, that was what.
I don't know if you ever saw Spaceballs by Mel Brooks, but Mel Brooks made a spoof of Star Wars and Spaceballs. I forget the name of the actor. Oh, the actor that was just assaulted in New York. The Honey I Shrunk the Kids actor. He was in Spaceballs, and he's very short. He put a huge helmet on this guy, and it looked like supposed to be Darth Vader, but it was a really short man with a huge helmet that covered almost down to his knees. That's what Dukakis looked like when he was in that dang on tank.
There's some funny moments in spite, but this whole election is so tragic that any kind of comic relief is welcome.
What do you think is going to happen with this? I mean, something serious is the stimulus packages, and so this is getting very, very life threatening. People are going to be out of work for probably 4 weeks before the election. And
you know what? He's playing the game that at the last minute he and Trump has COVID, and he was not tested every day, in spite of his press secretary Kyle McEnany said that Trump was tested many times daily, and then Trump himself contradicted her, saying every 2 days or so, but he was not tested before the debate. There's nothing that says when he was tested. So they are refusing to give us complete information on this whole thing with COVID and Trump. That doctor lied.
I feel like we're watching a political cult, a real life political cult that is being played out, because the people around him are, one, they're mimicking what he says. And I guess they realize that this is the president of the United States, and so I don't have a choice, right?
Yeah.
When I say what's the choice, I mean, I'm not saying that they're right. I'm saying if they want to keep their job, they're going to have to go down the crazy road with him. But it's on a daily basis now, at a critical, crucial moment in political history. To the extent that we have people like Senator Lee saying, and I say that respectfully, I want to call him something else, but saying that we're not a democracy. And I don't know if you saw those tweets last night. He said, we're a republic, we're not a democracy. We need to remember that. Da-da-da-da. That's technically not true. We're a representative democracy. We're not a republic and we're not a democracy. We're a representation of democracy. And we're representative because we actually have representatives who write the bills for us. We're not truly a democracy because we don't have majority voting on every single thing. However, the disingenuousness of that, and he didn't tweet it once, he tweeted 4 times last night throughout the debate. And what I believe that they're trying to set up is, at least in Trump's mind, he has a chance to stay in spite of the election results. However, in some states, he's down by 23 points at this point.
Yeah.
It's going to be a blowout.
Yeah.
It's going to be so massive that's impossible for him to say that, this is not the case.
Yeah. And you can see that COVID is also growing in some of those states like Wisconsin. So
yes. And people are really scared.
Trump claims that COVID-19 was a blessing from God, a blessing in disguise, and Regeneron is the miracle drug that he has been looking for.
It was.
It
was a blessing for us. God has blessed us to have him have control of COVID, so he can't deny it anymore. And everyone can see a lot of his supporters are afraid now. And so he's right. It was a blessing. It's not the way he thinks.
I know. He also claims he's cured and he will make it available to everybody, he says. In the meantime, there are more COVID infections at the White House than Taiwan and New Zealand combined.
Poor and low-wealth people hostage,
So we have
essential workers
29
hostage.
people in
It's
the White
time for
House
change
right
in
now
this country.
tested positive for COVID.
The number I saw yesterday was
We'll bring you the
34.
latest. To
Yeah, I
participate
just saw 29.
Org,
It
go
keeps growing
there.
every day.
Reverend Dr. William
Yeah, patient zero is walking around the White House distributing COVID. So
that's why it's like a cult. It's troubling how the praise is in like. There's nobody saying, "Wait a minute," and it's going to be interesting. Years to come, the history, the memoirs and all that stuff. But who was the person that keeps shouting? If there's anybody, maybe there's nobody. You can't do that. Is it Ivanka? Is it Melania? Is it because there's got to be some adult saying you can not. I know what used to be the lawyer, used to be legal counsel, Don, whatever his name was, but now who was that person that is actually saying?
Reverend Dr. William Barber, co-chair of the Poor People's Campaign.
I was like, no, Trump, you can't do this. I don't know. But it's
there
going
is
to be
nobody.
To understand.
Martin, the answer is that there is nobody because he got rid of all the grown up.
There's got to be a person. I'm not saying they listen to. What I'm saying is, and I'm not saying they say it all the time, but I'm saying there's got to be a consistent person saying no. Because he's had to come up with some crazier things than he's done. He has to come up with some crazier shit that he's done. You know what I mean? He has to. And he can't help himself. Like they say people are waiting for when he mentions the fly. Because he can't help himself. He just can't help himself. He's got to mention that fly. And now that the Republicans are saying, some people are whispering that Pence did a better job than Trump did, he's got to take Pence down a peg.
And though I wrote a column saying that Trump was probably watching, and he probably ate one of his MAGA hats when Pence was speaking, because he was doing better than Trump, but he was still lying about everything. So I don't know. The cocktail of drugs that the president was given is prescribed for patients who are severely ill. Remember one thing, Martin, because Trump is claiming that he's cured. Remember Herman Cain? He died 27 days after being diagnosed with COVID. So it will still come back.
Also, Trump's drug was something that is problematic for Pence and Trump. It's something that's going to come out. It's not going to stop until it has reached a fever pitch. Trump's drug that he's taking every day, the only reason that he's able to take it is because it's using cells from abortions and fetuses. Now, those are not recent abortions. They have been aborted fetuses that have been in the lab for months. But the point is, that information is being published in the MIT Tech Review magazine as of yesterday. And it's explosive because here's a person who's talking about abortion and talking about all this stuff about Amy Barrett. And I think once that hits, that's going to be one of the kneecaps or the punch to the nose that starts to bleed in the fight, because that is something that evangelicals do not mess with and play with when it comes to using dead fetuses for scientific research. They're completely adamant about that, and that's part of some of the QAnon conspiracies. So it's really interesting how many things are being talked about publicly that are going to be little stabs or cuts that really affect his facade. But I wanted to ask you, what about the Democrats' responses? I think that Biden and Harris have some vulnerabilities. One of those, not that it's going to make a huge difference, But one of those vulnerabilities is Pence asked that question. What are you going to do with the Supreme Court? Why not just come out and say, we're going to make the Supreme Court equal and balanced? And the American people will be like, you know what, that's fair. No one's going to come at you. I don't know why they won't answer the question, and it's a non-question, really. We know what's going to happen. Like, we're not going to let you, pack the court. If they win, they're going to make sure that's an equal court. That's that. Next question.
That's right. Because at this point, if
it's not equal, right?
If just
it's not equal representation.
Yeah, if this Amy Barrett is appointed as I think she will pass, they will have a 6-3 number, so in favor of the Republicans. So that will have to be changed when the Democrats come to power.
And the next question, they keep trying to go away from the Green New Deal. Listen, the deal that you have, I think Pence said he's going to retrofit. He was cut off by the moderator, who did a horrible job, by the way. But he said, retrofit 4 million buildings. 4 million. We need it. We need 4 million buildings to be energy efficient. Like, that's literally every other country has that. We're the last country on the planet almost of our size that is not updating its buildings to produce energy, to use energy from natural resources like the sun or the wind. We're the last country. It's ridiculous.
That's a no-brainer. They should just.
I think they have some problems with that. Other than that, I think she did a great job. I think they're going to win, but they need to answer those two: the Supreme Court question and the Green New Deal question need to be put to bed, and let's move on.
Yeah. So here's a list of people that should be defeated and or never heard from again. This is my enemies list. Trump, Moscow Mitch, Lindsey Graham, the forever uninformed Devin Nunes, Paul Ryan, Mike Pompeo, William Barr, Kellyanne Conway, Stephen Miller, Jared Kushner. Never want to hear from them again. Go away, people. Disappear. So, on a more pleasant note, Martin, because I know you're a very cultured person, this year's Nobel Prize for Literature has been awarded to the U.S. poet Louise Gluck. She was recognized for her unmistakable poetic voice that with austere beauty makes individual existence universal, according to the Swedish Academy, which oversees the award. The Academy added she was surprised when she received a phone call. She was born in New York in 1943, lives in Massachusetts, and is a professor of English at Yale University. So that is the Nobel Prize for Literature, Louise Gluck. And I recommend you read some of her very ethereal poems, really very well written. Okay? Trying to improve you, Martin. Hello, Martin. Are you there? Okay.
I'm here. I said yes. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
No. You mute your button and you forget to unmute. So.
No. I didn't mute. This time I didn't mute.
Okay. Anyway, it's a culture note that I appreciate that. And the Nobel Peace Prize will be announced Friday. And Trump was complaining that nobody made a big deal of his nomination to the Nobel Peace Prize. He really lives in a different reality. I don't know. I don't understand that. Anyway, Martin, you have any tidbits, local news, international, whatever you bring to us today?
Nothing yet. Hopefully it's Tuesday. So hopefully you should have something.
Okay. So I want to emphasize once again that Mike Pence refused to commit to a peaceful transition of power.
Right.
People should remember that. He refused to commit to a peaceful transition of power.
Right.
what Trump and Pence are doing is one of those things, is the best example of that saying that you should not disturb your opponent while he's shooting himself in the foot. So we should let them do what.
Right. And I think that they're gaslighting, for people that are that concerned. They're doing everything that they can to encourage fear and encourage concern.
Yeah. Anyway, and as a final note, Michigan adds 9 people dead and 1,000 new COVID cases. Wisconsin reports 2,300 new cases. Pennsylvania reports second highest total new COVID cases since May. So COVID is picking up speed across the country, and that also should have an effect on the election.
Gotcha.
Anyway, Martin, thank you for joining us today.
Absolutely, and hopefully there's a debate next week.
Okay, man.
Okay, thanks.
Have a great weekend. We'll see you. Señores oyentes de USA La Media, les habla Fernando Mendez. Aquí me despido de ustedes. Muchas gracias por su sintonía en el día de hoy. Desde la mesa redonda, Niall Jacks controlling the board, Martin Pratt on the phone. Hasta la próxima.